Hey, Joe here from Home Studio Corner. Just got the latest version of Studio One, version 4, that was announced today. They let me get it a couple of days early, so I've had a little time to check it out, and I want to show you my first impressions. Now, I'm actually not going to talk about a lot of the big features they released because they're things that I personally am not going to use, at least right now. So they've got like the chord track that lets you map out the chords of the song and then change the chords. That's just not something I'm going to use. And a lot of stuff with their different virtual instruments, the drum machine and the sampler, stuff that I've just not gotten into myself. I probably will because it does look really cool the way you can sample into their sampler from any bus and then manipulate that and turn it into something you can trigger with drum pads. That's interesting to me, but it's not something I do. So whenever I do these videos, I show you the stuff that I'm using, and I'm the kind of guy who likes to set a microphone in front of something and record it. So call me old-fashioned, but I've got nothing against if you like to do MIDI, full-on MIDI productions, great. Studio One is becoming even more and more suitable for that, but that's not who I am. So I'm going to show you a couple of features that I found just through an hour or so of poking around that I think are kind of cool. Mostly kind of smaller things, and then one big thing. So let's go through a couple of smaller things first. First thing you'll notice is it does have a little bit of a cleaner look. The buttons and the tracks, and this is not a game changer, but it's a little smoother looking. The buttons, etc., look a little bit nicer. Another cool thing is you can actually hide, if you bring this little dealie right here down, you can hide the I.O. stuff. So that just makes it look where it shows all the inputs and outputs. That can make things look a little more cluttered. Pull that down. We still have everything, sends and inserts available to us, but it just looks a little bit cleaner, right? So that's one thing. The other thing they're showing, and this is interesting if you need some more customization in how your thing looks. Like if you want this to look not so, I like the dark look that we have here, but if you're wanting to go for a more flipped look, you can come into the preferences under appearance, and you can actually change this up quite a bit. So this luminance setting actually completely flips everything. I don't think this looks as good to me, but I saw Johnny Guy talking about how this is really helpful, especially if you have a hard time visually. It can make things feel a little easier on the eyes, and there's a different setting for the arranger as well. So if you want to go super bright, maybe you're in a bad mood, you need something brighter, that might be a way to do it. I tend to like the dark and brooding version. That's more like this, but now you have options, which is pretty cool. So you can keep it as colorful or non-colorful as you want, and of course you can colorize the channel strips as well. So if you don't like them to be all the same color, there's a set, right here. Colorize channel strips, deselect that. Now my channels are all dark and gray. If you're into dark and gray, I like them to go colorful, so we'll make them colorful. A couple of interesting things there. One other thing, if I pull up the inspector and you look to the left, it's all kind of the normal stuff we're used to seeing. There's a few extra settings up here, the follow chord mode, the tune mode, stuff that I'm not going to be using. But you see this little thing right here, edit note. Could it be? Did they finally import that feature? All right, this pulls up the song information tab and lets me type in notes for each individual track. So let's say I use the E602 on the kick in, and we use the, the fathead mic on the kick out, and so on and so forth. We can have notes here for each track. That's not terribly useful unless it can show up on the tracks themselves, which it does. This is great. So click on this little wrench in the mixer window and scroll yourself down and click on channel notes. Show channel notes. Now look down here. Look what happened. At the very bottom, we've got, if I pull up here, look. This little section across the bottom, it's just like in the old Pro Tools world where you could have notes under each track. That's super helpful, especially if you're collaborating or you're one of those people who likes to document that you put an SM57 on the snare top and you put a AKG D5 on the bottom. They're all there and it gets saved with the session, which is pretty handy. Is it something I will use? That might actually be one I'll use, especially if I think I'm going to come back and re-record something later and I want to remember which mic and preamp I used, for example. Super helpful there. Or maybe I want to write down which patch I used on the Avid 11 rack or something. Stuff that's not saved with the session, it's now available down there. And of course, you can get rid of it and make it smaller or larger depending on your needs. which is pretty stinking cool. I like that a lot. Okay, so those are some of the smaller things. Here's another small thing. If you do any audio editing for spoken word, podcast, audiobooks, things like that, this is a feature. I just noticed there was a new button up here at the top. It says toggle ripple edit. I didn't know what that meant, so I looked in the manual, and it's basically slip mode in Pro Tools. So for example, let's say this vocal track down here in yellow is a spoken word track, and the person coughs right here. We need to just get rid of this audio and then move the adjacent audio back. Well, now with ripple, what is it called again? Ripple mode? With ripple edit mode on, when I delete this section, the part to the immediate right pulls all the way back. So it's just like slip edit, like a lot of folks have been asking for in Pro Tools. It's now here. That's going to apply to a small percentage of people watching this, but that's pretty handy if you do a lot of podcasting like I do. I don't edit my podcast, but if I did, if I was more a good podcaster, then that would be a helpful feature for me. Okay, and here's the one big thing. This is something folks have been asking for a long time, and it's right here under Song, Import Song Data. This is very much like Pro Tools has import session data, and it's essentially the same deal. I can come in, I can go select a Studio One song and open it, and it'll basically say, okay, what do you want to import from that other song? So if I'm tracking a band and I'm on my second song, maybe I didn't save a template. That's how I would normally do this, save it as a template and open a new song from that template. Let's say I forgot, or let's say I'm coming back and I did a really cool set of guitar tracks in a session, and I want to copy those same plugins and fader levels and panning on my new session. I just come import song data, go select the song I want to import, and then I just select the tracks that I want to bring into this session. And then I can choose to bring the events, the actual audio, to come with it if you want, layers and automation. You can copy the songs, or you can just import the settings, such as volume and pan and inserts, and leave the rest blank, which is what I'll do here. I click OK, it thinks for a second, and now down here at the bottom, it has all these tracks imported from that other song. And if we look over here in our session, they're all set up with routing, panning, inputs, outputs, and plugins on each of them. So instead of having to save it as a channel strip and then opening the other session, saving it as a channel strip, then coming back to this session and then loading that channel strip, which is tedious and kind of a waste of time. And if you're not using templates to start your session, let's say your session's already underway and you want to bring in some cool stuff you did in another song without having to do a lot of work, that gets it done super fast. The one bummer I will say, and I know this isn't the best promo video in the world, it doesn't currently allow you to import your buses. So information from, so I use a lot of buses when I mix. So everything's routed through a bus. Drums are through a drums bus, bass is through a bass bus, guitars through a guitar bus. There's just lots of buses, and that's a big part of my sound. A lot of my processing goes on there. You'll notice when I go to import song data, it only gives me tracks. So the only buses I see down here are the lead violin and the Vox bus, because those were in the arrange window, because there's probably some automation there. So there's like 8 other buses on this song. There's drums, bass, electric, acoustic, and background vocal buses that are not showing up here to allow me to import those. That's a bit of a bummer. I'll send them an email to see if they'll change it. That would be cool, to let me really import anything from the session, including effects buses, reverb settings, and things like that. That to me is more useful than importing just the track settings themselves. But having the tracks there, that's a great start. So kudos to you, PreSonus. All right, that's it for my first look at PreSonus Studio One version 4. Some pretty cool stuff. Not one of those updates that's a game changer for me personally, the way that I work. But if you haven't checked out their videos of all the cool features like the chord thing, the chord track, and all the stuff with Impact XT and their other, what's it called? Such an idiot about this stuff because I just don't use them. Sample One and then Impact XT. Some really cool stuff that they've added there. So if you're a Studio One user, check it out. And if you're into recording, which of course you are, and you want to get better at it, check out my recording cheat sheet, recordingcheatsheet.com. It's free. It's yours. Just pop in your email, and you'll be good to go. All right. Thanks for watching. See ya.